I wanted to demonstrate end-to-end flow the way we see it. So it is expected that you're going to be using extension CLI that we provide. Technically, you can create a package from scratch if you want to, but it is a lot easier with the provided CLI. Here we're using create command. It doesn't take any parameters. When we run it, it will ask us a bunch of questions about the project that we are trying to create. So in this case, ID of an add-on. Important part here is the difference between an add-on and extension. So a single add-on can contain multiple extensions. When we're talking about add-on, we're talking specifically about add-on service packages. We can provide an ID, provide a name. Those are required by add-on service format. All it does essentially is fills in the manifest file that is required for it. Here we should provide the name of the front-end extension. So the extension is going to be created inside of an add-on. Description for it. And this is the most important part. So the URL of the Tridion Sites instance that we are referencing that we're going to develop extensions against. In this case, this is the URL path. This is the environment. So let's use it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm using the older version of this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So URL. It will generate the initial structure, and it will also install all the dependencies that are required to run your front-end extension. It might take some time. Meanwhile, we can look at what it generated. So it generated the following structure. It created a folder for the add-on itself, inside of it the folder for your extension. At this level, it generated a manifest file. This is a manifest file for the add-on based on add-on service format. It added the extension here straight away. It referenced default files and specified a correct type. It also generated an empty config if you want to use a config for your extension. Inside of extension folder itself, you're going to find the front-end extension. Every extension in the add-on, by default, it is configured to output results into the dist folder one level higher. This way, there's a single dist folder for all of the front-end extensions in the add-on, and they can be easily packed together. With that in mind, let's switch to the front-end extension itself. It already has all of the configured scripts. It already installed all the dependencies. So all we need to do is run it. This is going to start a development server locally. This is the error that warning that I was talking about in Chrome, because technically this is not a secure HTTPS, because the certificate is generated by Webpack. If you want to avoid this, you can generate your own certificate. And now you would see the same environment as the application that we're targeting. It shows exactly the same. Well, here we have some extension already enabled on the host application. Because we don't have this extension enabled here, because we're replacing it with a local extension, it disappears. So let's try and write some extension. We provide some scaffolding for this. This is the place where you're supposed to define your new extensions. The recommended approach, the approach that we recommend is something like this. So we can create a new subfolder, um, let's say actions. Inside of it, this is just a simple organizational approach. This way you can organize having multiple extension points or adding multiple extensions to different extension points. So let's start with something simple. Let's say we want to add a new primary navigation item. For any primary navigation item, you need to specify an ID. You need to specify what route it's going to be available on. You need to specify what component is going to be rendered, and a special hook. Most of our extensions are based on hooks. The hook approach allows us to have a two-way communication between an extension and the host application. For route component, let's define some component. Oh yeah. As you can see, we do have ESLint. So this then registers a new navigation. As you can see, you cannot see anything because technically, while we did create a new navigation item, it's not added anywhere yet. So we need to add it into the header. And this is where the second extension point comes in, called config. And here we should specify the ID that we want to add. We can also specify where exactly do we want to add it. On every save, as you can see, we are rebuilding stuff, and so it appears straight away. Here's a new page. Here's your hello world. And you can utilize any kind of third-party libraries or anything you want in here. Also, another interesting possibility here is that I'm returning hard-coded true for is available as initialized. Those two flags allow you to actually have additional rendering that's done before your page is available. Also, it allows you to control if this page should be visible for this specific user group. Another thing that I would like to demonstrate here is that right now my label is my page, which is fine, but as I said, we do recommend that all of your strings would be translatable. So in order to achieve that, we allow you to define a custom translation. Here you would specify a key, in this case, something like that. It's going to say my page. In order to use this translation, you need to utilize a function called t, which is available from globals file. You won't see any difference now because we have English translation and we show in English. But let's say I'll switch it to Netherlands, and I won't try to show you that I know Dutch. There it is. So this is the label and the translation in this case. Now let's say we want to add a new action button. Yeah, I called this action extensions. I've got no idea. Yeah, sorry. I'm a bit confused because I wanted to show both action extensions and primary navigation extensions, but I created already for action extensions. But never mind. So let me actually. Actions to Content Explorer. So if you want to add something to Content Explorer, table, we want to add a new action. Each action should have an ID, icon, label, and hook. We're gonna add some my action. I don't know yet what it's gonna be doing. A label is used for the tooltip and in the context menu. Icon is a bit difficult. Can we hack it around? Yes, we can. I don't have an icon on hand, but I can demonstrate to you how it looks like with a fully built extension later. From the hook, we should return is this action available and the execute function. Is available allows you to control if this action should be visible at the moment in this specific context. As I described, you have access to all of the data contexts that are above. So you have access to use Content Explorer, for instance. From there, you can get current node information. You have navigation functionality and the current hierarchy of items that are loaded. Let's say we're going to use current node for now. We're going to define some callback. In this callback, we're going to do, I don't know, can I do something like that? Let's show the ID of the current node. Well, maybe better to show title. Is available, you can control it dynamically. It is a bit difficult for me to demonstrate from scratch here, but I'm going to show you how it's used a bit later. So let's export this. And the same way as before, yes, we added a new extension, action, but we didn't specify where it's supposed to be shown, which is a different extension point. So here again, we want to say that this Content Explorer table, now we want to configure toolbar or context menu. Let's say we want to configure the toolbar. There are a couple of quality of life hooks like move, remove, replace, add. And there is also customize. Customize allows you to change the whole configuration. So for instance, I can do something like this. Configuration in this case are list of action groups. Each toolbar consists of action groups. Each action group contains multiple actions. So technically I can do something like config, let's see. Yeah, it's not something that can be done that much, I think. Let's see if it works. And it does. So there is no toolbar anymore. I completely removed it. With this configuration, you can completely customize what exactly do you want to see in the toolbar. In our case, we want to see this new action. So we're going to say add. At this moment, this API works on level of action groups. So we are adding and removing new action groups, not just actions. So we're going to say, I want a new action group. This action group going to have some label. And it would contain this item that we defined here. Because technically you can define a new action group that contains already existing actions. You can completely reorganize how the toolbars is done. And now we should see our new action. There it is. This is a new action. There are no icon because, well, it's kind of difficult to create an icon from scratch. And I don't want to spend too much time searching for it at the moment. So that's why this is empty. And if I'm going to click on it, we're going to see an alert with the title of the current node that we're in, so publications. This shows that we get information from the application, and also we are exposing some information from the extension, and they work together. These are simple examples. For something more interesting, I have first let me show how you can deploy this. So I showed you all these extensions, but on the host application, of course, there won't be anything, right? Because all of these, they exist only locally, all of these extensions. So let's create a package and deploy it. In order to do that, first we need to build the production build of our extension. Okay. After the build, I can show you. So the output, as I said, it doesn't output files into the same folder. It outputs it one level higher into the dist in the add-on itself. This way, if you have multiple extensions, all of them can output everything into the single dist folder. So this dist folder is exactly what's going to be used by the add-on. And in order to simplify creating a new add-on, we actually have it as a script inside of each extension. So here you can see there's a pack command. As an input, it takes manifest file from the level above and the input folder from the level above and outputs them again one level above. So technically you can run pack from any frontend extension. This is just a convenience. So it says here, we're using this manifest file. We're creating it from this folder, and we have generated this add-on package here. There it is. So let's try and upload it. And it's done. So now we should see our extensions deployed here. And here's the button, and here's our Hello World page. But also I wanted to demonstrate some more complex extensions. So there are a couple of things to it. First thing, CLI is done and used in order to be able to create things from scratch. If you have a certain extension in mind, you take the CLI and build everything from scratch the way you want. We also, as a separate thing, we're going to provide a set of examples, each one as a separate add-on. They would show all kinds of common extensions that customers are trying to create. Because usually a single extension that you have in mind works across multiple extension points that are technically there. The way I showed it in the primary navigation, for instance, right? These are 3 different extension points. So you can actually have lots of complexity in your extensions, and there are lots of different cases. Like, how do I use third party? How do I have an add-on that contains both backend and front-end parts? How can I use CSS? Because by default we support styled components, and we recommend styled components because we are providing all kinds of mixins for them. But technically, if you prefer CSS, you can use CSS. Or maybe you prefer post CSS or any other, front-end library. And so in order to help with that, we can provide a repository with a bunch of examples that you can also use as a starting point instead of trying to create things from scratch. And so here, for instance, I have color picker add-on. This is an extension for the editor. It looks like this. All right, I need to install stuff. Sorry. So let's go through it. As you can see, the structure is very similar. So again, you need to define an ID. You're defining what component do you want to render, and you have hook that defines, allows you to do communication between the host application and the extension and back. So this is available. It can change dynamically depending on what's needed. In this case, for instance, this extension is not available for non-component or non-page editors, depending on where we are. Priority here is also important. So when you have a field extension, this is available, allows you to decide, do you want to have extension for a field on per field basis, or actually on basis on any data. And because of that, it can mean that a single field can have multiple extension extensions that are available at the same time. Priority defines which one of them should win. So let me give you an example. You might have an extension that applies to all of the fields that are called color. You might also have an extension that is applied to, I don't know, all number fields. And they can be active at the same moment. And then the question is which one of them should win. And you can use priority to define which one of them is more important. Overall, field extension allows you to customize how your field is going to look like in the editor, in edit mode, and in README mode, how it should be just presented. In this case, this is a hex color picker, so we are rendering a color patch, and we allow you to change it using the color picker. Let's run it. Just a second. I need to find the link to the prepared data. I have it somewhere here. Yeah, got it. Let me show again. Yeah, so here there's a color picker example component. If I open it, here's the color presented as a text. If I edit it, again, it is a text, because technically this is a text field. We are on the host application right now. I'm not showing the our local environment where the extension is. If we would go to the same place in our local environment, where we run in our extension, here you can see that the extension is applied. So in read-only mode, this field becomes a square with color. In edit mode, this is a color picker where I can change my color dynamically and then save it. Underlying field type doesn't change because of that. It's still a text field. The data is stored as text. You just present it in a different way using your extension. There are other examples that I can show. This is an example of a column extension. Sorry, again, I need to install, because each one of these are a separate project. You don't necessarily need to do that, but we're doing this specifically for our examples repository, because then you can easily check out a single project and use it as a starting point, rather than having one huge project with all of the possible variations of different examples. So for a custom column extension, we add new translations, and this is how we add a new custom column in the Content Explorer, and similarly in activities. So we define min width for it. We define is this column resizable or not, ID and a title of it. Then you have the presentation component and the logical hook, like business logic hook. Same way as in other extensions, business logic hook returns information if this column is available or not. And the component actually is responsible for the rendering of this thing. Let's run it. Here, as you can see, we're going to see this column only if the place where we are is not the publication or taxonomy, so business process types. So here we're in publications, we don't see any new columns. Do we need to enable it? Yeah, probably. Schema purpose. Yeah, there it is. I didn't read the conditions correctly, probably. Yeah, because I was in the publications node. Sorry. So here right now, when I'm in a folder, there's an example with a bunch of schemas. And now I have this custom schema purpose column. As you can see, it is configurable the same way as any other column. You can control it with a column configurator. It's going to be preserved, saved, and so on. And this is the component that we're rendering in a column. So depending on the schema purpose, we're rendering a circle with a different color. Yeah, I have a bunch of other examples, but I think the principle is the same. We have a big kitchen sink of examples that we're using as a it can be a good demonstration of all kinds of extensions that can be done, can be available in parallel. So here, right now, I have a bunch of extensions enabled. There are extensions, there are action extensions. Actually, I can really just show it side by side, and maybe it's going to be more noticeable. Yeah, our screens are not suited to be shown this size, I'm sorry. Maybe better together. So here you can see the refresh button was the last one. It is in a separate group and so on. This here refresh button was moved to the beginning. We changed what we have in toolbar. We added a couple of action examples. So this thing changes my language. There is a Let me show the code because I think that might be interesting specifically for people that were asking about backend requests. Change language. So this is an example of more complex extension where I'm using notifications, I'm getting current user information, and I'm using a mutation. This mutation allows me to change the current user language. And then I'm deciding if it's available or not, depending on the current user language, because if it's already Dutch, then I don't show this action at all. And execute operation that does a backend request and shows notification. Separate pages. For instance, this one might be interested with users. Let's change language back to English. So for primary navigation users list, this one is interesting because we are loading a list of users that's going to be shown inside this page before we actually enable this item in the primary navigation. So the users are preloaded in this case. And by the time you go into the page, it's going to return cached data. And so this is a list of users. Yeah, just a list of users in the system. Yeah, and content tab, as you can see, Usually it is the first one, it was moved to the end. I think I went through most of the introduced functionality, so I think this would conclude my demo.